All right. Welcome to the number one Bengals podcast. I'm Dadio McDuke. As always, I'm joined by John Sheeran. And we don't have Dr. Hoji, the electric Samaje with us, unfortunately. But look, John, there is so much to talk about today with the Bengals in terms of free agents. That's our topic. Which free agents do you keep? Which ones do you let go? And John, look, let's say, there's only so much money. Like however much money the Bengals actually have, subtract $20 million per year, and that's how much money they're going to spend, right? Okay. So knowing that amount, which is what, like 20 something million, John? What is it?
So let's just cover that first right now.
Yeah.
The Bengals right now, as of this recording, have about 37 million in cap space. If they make the predicted cuts that they're supposed to, that will get them up to about 55 million. The projected salary cap is going to maybe go up a couple million. So you're going to see at the beginning of free agency about 55 to 60 million in cap space. But like you said, subtract about 15 million from that.
Yeah. So John, hold on. You said the expected cuts. So do you know who they're cut? Okay, like Geno Atkins probably cuts. I don't think, or they can't really trade him. I don't think. I don't know. But okay. And then who else are you considering? I mean, you're not considering Giovanni Bernard among the cuts, are you?
No, I think if he gets cut, that would be a surprise. I think it's Bobby Hart and BJ Finney, both offensive linemen. That would save him about $9 million against the cap.
Okay. And then, yeah, so Gino, okay, so let's say around 55. They're probably, let's be honest, they're going to spend maybe 40 annually, like you said. So what do you do with that money? What's your first priority, John? I mean, I'll tell you mine. It's Lawson. Yeah. I think, don't know. Yeah.
No, I think that fits their first priority too, because they have two big internal decisions to make. It's between Carl Lawson and William Jackson. I think in their mind, Lawson is more valuable immediately and also can be more valuable in the long-term sense because Carl Lawson is, I think, 2.5 years younger than William Jackson. He ascended into a high-quality starter, which, like, we saw that from Jackson a couple years ago, but it hasn't really gotten back on that level yet, and we kind of already know what type of player William Jackson is. I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall with him when they signed Trey Waynes to a mega deal for their standards. They see Trey Waynes as this high-quality cornerback, and they may not feel the same about William Jackson enough to pay him a similar contract. If they let go of Lawson, they have literally nothing in terms of an edge rushing presence. Like Sam Hubbard, cool dude, decent player. He's not half the pass rusher that Carl Lawson is. So they have basically nothing if they let Lawson go, which is why I think they're going to try and work out a long-term deal. But as everyone knows, this is the beginning of the franchise tag window, and they have until March 9th to potentially apply the franchise tag. And if they do that, that eats up $17.5 million in cap space. So getting a long-term extension for Lawson should be their priority because not only would it be the right decision, it would also save them a decent chunk of money, at least in 2021.
John, so I know that you kind of wrote up what the potential Lawson deal would look like, and we're going to take a look at that in a second. But we saw a sports track, right, saying that he'll get like $8 million a year or something like that, which here's the thing. I think Lawson is a victim of traditional stats, right? 5.5 sacks. 5.5 sacks gets you $8 million a year. Okay, wait a second. It's like, what it is, John? It's like the ratings for the show. A lot of people, they're using the same metrics for us that they traditionally used to use instead of measuring the cultural impact of the show, right? Like this show, I mean, maybe you get like 500 views, but if you look at what we're doing for football and for America, I mean, and freedom, and it's just way beyond what our numbers show. But seriously, John, look at Lawson, right? And the pressure he created basically all alone, right? You and I know that he's going to get way more than $8 million. I don't know what Spotrac was thinking, but are the Bengals going to use that as a negotiating tactic? Because they have like their team of lawyers who are going to come there and just argue until you just like, look, I'll just play for free, just leave me alone, right? What do you think? What do you think? Let's put this up here. So this is what you think the deal is going to look like, right? 4 years, $54 million for Carl Lawson, right? And this idea of the 2-year cash flow is so important in today's NFL contracts, as you talk about, right? Those first 2 years where most of the guaranteed money is. Explain to us why this kind of deal makes sense for the Bengals.
So let's just look at how the Bengals typically extend or sign their stars, right? Like, gonna be a weird first example here, but think about Bobby Hart. No one expected Bobby Hart to get 18 million in total value back in 2018. I think the Bengals overvalued what Bobby Hart was in order to ensure that they get him back because they just saw something in him. So, like, in regards to what the rest of the NFL may think of Lawson and what the Bengals may think of Lawson, they have no issue slightly overpaying what projected value would be for their own players in order to ensure that they come back, and they inflate that total value in order to give them less guaranteed money at signing. Like, the Bengals do not, and really the NFL in general, they don't really give out a ton of money in terms of a signing bonus, but the Bengals never guarantee base salary. And the ways that they can overcome this is that they will offer roster bonuses early in the year. Roster bonuses, like you see with Lawson, a $3 million roster bonus in 2021 and a $4 million roster bonus in 2022. Those are practical guarantees, because unless the Bengals cut Lawson like before the 2022 league year begins, like, he's going to get that money, and he's going to get the money up front with the roster bonus. So the roster bonuses are essentially guarantees and all but name only. So that helps them avoid giving out guaranteed base salary, which is what you see around the league. It's why you see total guaranteed monies numbers a little bit larger than what the guaranteed money at signing is. And the cash flow, you're right. Like, if Carl Lawson gets tagged, he gets 17 million for 1 year, and then he goes back on the free agency market. If he signs this extension now, he gets 17 million in cash in year one, and then an extra 10 million the next year. So Lawson has to be thinking to himself, do I want to take 17 million right now and then potentially get a lot more cash at the start of next year in the form of another contract, or do I take my chances and just take the 27 million for the first 2 years with the chance of earning 27 million more? So it's a risk in terms of what Lawson wants his future earnings to be, but this also gives him stability in the long term. It also gives the Bengals some flexibility, at least in the first year. This is not a typical Bengals deal, because usually you'll see the year one cap hit higher relative to what it could be relative to the average annual value. But because the Bengals are going to be short on cap space this year, because the cap is shrinking, this is the way that they would have to structure this deal. It's very similar to what we saw from DJ Reader last year.
Okay, but John, so I have two questions for you. Okay. The first is, does Lawson want to be at the Bengals? I mean, there was a story, one of these kind of what they call journalists. I don't know.
Was it you? Dadio? Did we lose him?
Yeah, I'm right here. Yeah. So okay. So two questions. The first one is, does Lawson want to be in Cincinnati? Because we had that whole story about, I don't know, one of these kind of dime a dozen journalists came out with this story saying that,
right, was it you? Yeah. Was it? Are you?
It doesn't really matter who it was. Doesn't matter who it was, John. But it was out there, right? That maybe he was being told not to use all his pass rush moves, and I don't know if that story being out there or just the idea being out there is going to hurt the negotiations. That's one thing, right? But John, the other thing is, when you talk about taking the franchise tag, Lawson tweeted something kind of related to that. And I guess my question for you is, does Lawson, someone like Lawson, because he has a bit of injury history. Remember, the reason he dropped to the Bengals was his injury history. Mm-hmm. Does that scare him? Or is he like, like you said, I mean, it's not, $17 million, $27 million, he could cash in, 1 year thing, and then he could get significantly more if he has really a year where all the NFL teams, even the traditional stats, reflect how good he is. Let's say the team's improved, he could jump $5 million annually next year, right? So I wonder if that is going through his head.
Like that's the risk that you take, right? Lawson is going to turn 26 this summer, so you think if he gets tagged, he'll enter next free agency 26, 27 years old, and that's still on the young side from an NFL team's perspective, where they can offer him a long-term deal. But that's assuming that you're right. Like, if his sack numbers increase and his notoriety increases and his projected value and just overall value increases, like, Lawson could be sitting here, and his agent's telling him you're not going to find a deal that nets you an annual value of $13.5 million on the open market. Like Cincinnati's the only one that's offering you this, but they're not offering you a lot of money up front. Like that's just how this deal would have to be structured in order to comply with the cap this year, in order to get other players signed in this free agency period. So that's the risk that Lawson has to take. He can take an inflated deal in terms of the total value and risk, sacrificing, a handful of millions, at least in the first 2 years, or he can say, tag me and I'll explode like Shaq Barrett did and even net out an even bigger contract. So that's the risk that he takes, and we'll see what he ends up doing, what the Bengals end up doing. I've silenced him. My analysis is so good.
Yeah. Sorry, just bad connection there. But John, you're talking about risks. You're talking about making money. John, I have entered into a contract, very risky, in terms of on their behalf, on the behalf of the sponsors, but very lucrative on our behalf. We've entered into a contract, a sponsorship with eBay, John. And I just want to take a second to talk about eBay, because look, whether they have the rare dead stock or they have the latest release, you can find the exact shoe you're looking for. Look, the original sneaker marketplace, eBay, is the place to go to cop the pair you've been eating. Sorry, the pair you've been eyeing, you've been looking at. Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, I thought, okay. But yeah, you cop them. You like beat them or something. I don't know what it means to cop, but something. You like handcuff or something, right?
You just acquire it. Cop.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. John, with eBay's authenticity guarantee. So no, you don't worry about the knockoffs, all that stuff. Your sneakers are meticulously inspected by independent professional authenticators. Yeah. A team of experienced sneaker authenticators verify the box, logo, stitching, and dozens of other inspection points. Each sneaker.
Thought there was more to that than that. Maybe there is.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, John. So look, a team of experienced sneaker authenticators verify the box, logo, stitching, and dozens of other inspection points. Each sneaker also receive authenticity guarantee tag that include digital stamp of authenticity and protect sellers with verified return process. Look, no seller fees on the sneakers over $100. So look, and it is free, John, to sell or flip your collection. John, I mean, this is a serious question, and no one answered it for me, but because I don't know, like you flip your collection, so your shoes, you flip them I didn't know they charge for like juggling shoes, or I mean that doesn't make any sense. It's like you need a license.
That's not the flip that they're talking about.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's a different type of flip.
So different type of flip, but whatever it is, it's free, John. You can just flip whatever. You can flip your shoes off or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's free. Yeah, $100. No selling fees on shoes. So look, go to ebay.com/sneakers today. eBay, the world's best destination for discovering great value and unique selection. Whew. Okay. Let's get back to the show, John. Look,
you're pretty good at
this. We
this.
talked about Lawson. Yeah. John, we talked about Carl Lawson. Okay. I want to talk about WJ3, better known as William Jackson III. I'll be honest with you. I'm torn on re-signing him. Okay. I think it was like when we gave Mixon the deal, right? Or we gave Trey Bynes the deal. I'm all for the Bengals spending money. Okay, but when they spend money one place, that means they're not going to spend it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to be giving money out to, and I think William is an above-average corner, and I want to get your take. I think he's above average corner, but I want to say one observation that I had, John. His great year was his second year or third year. I don't remember. We had that breakout year.
This is his first year.
No, it wasn't. He was injured. He had the pec.
Well, it was his first year that he played.
Yeah, so second year
in the league.
Yeah, right. But he was like already 25. That was one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, John, was that if you look at those highlights, like we all like said, oh, he had like the best PFF grade, blah, blah, blah. You know, he shut down Antonio Brown in his prime, all that stuff, right? But if you look at the clips, John, he's always playing catch up. He's always using and he has great, catch up speeds, and he has those arms that pokes the ball away. But he was never like a guy who blanketed the receivers. Do you agree with that assessment?
I agree with that. I think
Yeah,
in general,
yeah.
I think in general with William, like you said, he's on the older side, and we've already seen decent play out of him. So you don't pay like for future years for past production. You would pay William Jackson a lot of money for the next few years if you assume he's going to continue playing at that level. He might be a decent player for the next year or two, but at this point, I think the fair assumption is that you've seen the best of William Jackson, and anything you're paying for now is just based off what he did in the past. And I'm not sure that's the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, we already gave Trey Waynes that money. Imagine having Trey Waynes and William Jackson getting like $30 million a year and being average. You know, it's just not the best. You know, especially with a team that is down there, bottom 2 or 3 offensive line. You know, and like PFF has been coming out and saying the Bengals are going to have to. And you know, Joe said it on our show. Joe Goodberry said on our show last week. But I mean, and you've been saying everybody. But really, they're going to have to spend probably 2 big time acquisitions on the offensive line. I don't think they're going to do it, but that's the way to get there fast. So I'll be honest. I would not be that upset if they let William Jackson. Obviously, I'd like to keep him, but if we can get those big offensive line signings too, I hope it doesn't prohibit that.
Wait, just real quick though, just real quick. I think like they can still work it out, but they would have to cut players that they might not feel comfortable cutting. Like Gio, for example, they would save
Right.
a few million with that. CJ Uzoma, they would save a few million with that. If they were to move on from those veterans and use that to keep William Jackson, you could still address the offensive line. But based on what we think they're going to do, it might not be
Yeah.
the best decision.
Right. But look, he had a 71 grade overall from PFF, 72 in coverage, which was third to the team to Jesse Bates, the great Jesse Bates, who had the amazing 90 overall grade. But John, somehow Khalid Kareem had the 81 grade in coverage. I don't know, maybe he just had a few snaps. But that's kind of cool. Okay. Look, let's move on. So let's say we let William go. We have a couple of backup corners. Are either of them going to be sticking around, or should they be? LeShaun Sims, Tony Brown, both of them had 40, coverage grades in the 40s.
Yeah,
Not that great. Yeah.
I don't think Sims is coming back. I think Tony Brown is a restricted free agent, so it would cost like a few million to bring him back, but they can decline that tender and just bring him back for vet minimum, which makes some sense because he's not a starter, but they still need bodies there.
And we need Brandon Wilson back. We're talking about the second, but I mean he's a special teams guy. But we got to get that guy back. I mean he's a Pro Bowl caliber special teamer, right? I mean,
yeah, and I think here's something that you might enjoy. Brandon Wilson has played the last 4 years on the Bengals. He's been on the Bengals 53-man roster for the last 4 years, which means he qualifies for a veteran salary benefit, meaning that the Bengals can pay him like a couple million, but his cap number can be less than $1 million, which means that they would be saving money on the cap by bringing him back. So it's a decent option there. Yeah,
that's great. They should do that. They should do that. Look, John. Okay, here's the thing: biggest name of all the free agents. Look, it's just funny we haven't even thought about him until now. AJ Green is a free agent, but you know why I haven't thought about him? Because he's 100% gone. I'll tell you why, John. I'll tell you something. If the Packers, okay, or the Seahawks, okay, come out and offer AJ Green $5 million a year, and the Bengals offer him $7 million a year, AJ Green is still gone. Even if the Bengals, for the first time in their history, offer someone more money than another team, AJ Green will be gone. Okay? It's just clear from his body language, from what he said. Honestly, John, I don't think he's as done as people think. I don't think he's as slow as he looks. I think it's just a symptom. It's what they call in psychology the Carlos Dunlap syndrome. Okay? Where you're just so sick of playing for the Cincinnati Bengals that you don't feel like you don't love the game anymore. It's not called the Carson Palmer syndrome, because Carson Palmer is so that's different. That syndrome has to do with being cowardly and throwing a bunch of interceptions and near interceptions and then blaming your teammates and all that kind of stuff. That's different. But it's the Carlos Dunlap syndrome. And I think he wants to win. And I don't know if it's going to happen. He got a chance to play with a great quarterback. It still wasn't working out because of the nature of the coaching. So he wants to go to a competent coaching staff, go play for a real team, real contender, even if it's probably, I'm going to say, even if it's a little less money. That's what I say. So I think he's 100%.
I would agree. Yeah. Like he can accept a minor role for another team, but to ask him to be like a third receiver on the Bengals, it's just not possible.
Now, John, there's two guys that you say you think will be back that I don't really see the reason why. So you can tell me if it's for veteran presence or you just think, maybe the Bengals think they contribute and we don't see, Mike Daniels and Josh Bynes, two veterans, very respectable veterans. They were very good in their, a few years ago. But I personally would be like, okay, look, the linebackers are developing. Marcus Bailey. Not only was he on our show, which is very impressive, but he had a coverage grade of like 80. Okay. So it's like we have these linebackers who can cover now. And I know Josh is the run pass rushing, all that kind of, he's not the coverage guy so much. But, it seems like it's time to, move on from the older veteran linebackers. But you see them coming back, Josh Bynes and Mike Daniels.
Daniels, because when they cut Gino, they're going to have literally no bodies at 3 technique. They just need somebody there that they can count on before the draft. I think Daniels is still in pretty good shape for being 32 years old. I think they liked what he did last year. And yeah, they can bring him back on like a cheap deal. Bynes, I agree. Like they don't really need him because they have young linebackers. There's just been talk that like they really just like him as a person. So they're just going to hand him like a million just to stick around for another year because, guys like Wilson and Akeem Davis-Gaither, like they're still young. They could still use like, some more experience in that room to help them grow. But yeah, like there's nothing wrong with keeping Bynes for like $1 million deal for another year, which could happen.
Yeah, I could see them keeping Daniels, and then like you said, I don't see why you can't draft his replacement in the draft. And there was a lot of guys that were injured. The name is escaping me right now. The big defensive tackle who was injured and was on the show.
Wren.
Yes, Renell Wren. I hope he's not listening. But yeah, but but you can invest in the younger players. I think you're right. Maybe you keep him around, but on a minimum deal. I could see that. Okay, Mackensie Alexander, John. He was the replacement for a previous slot corner.
Dark Wizard.
Yes, and the thing is, I know he wasn't great, but is he what they're is he enough for being a slot corner? Do they keep him just so they have someone at that position?
I would not mind if they keep Alexander because I think he's a solid player. There's apparently just rumors that him and the coaching staff don't really see eye to eye, which is why they might just look elsewhere. And also like the slot cornerback position, we all saw the value of it when Leon Hall was playing at his best. He was the best player at that position, but the value of that position never really saw an increase monetarily. Like you can always get solid slot cornerbacks for cheap, which is why like even if they let Alexander go, they're going to have other options to replace him for about the same money and maybe get a better player out of it. Or they could just draft a guy and easily fill that role. Or Darius Phillips, who's a solid cornerback regardless where you play, he can develop into that role. So Alexander would be fine to bring back, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that, and they're not going to be that troubled if they don't.
Yeah, you mentioned Darius Phillips. He was really good, John. He was really good. If he can sustain that, I mean, that's another reason I'm okay with letting William go. Of course, only to get other players. Okay, John, here's a guy that you don't have us bringing back, and I say we bring back, and that is Samaje Perine. He had, John, look, we had Joe Burrow on our team. We had, Tyler Boyd on our team. We had all these great players on our team. He had the highest PFF grades on offense. Did you know that?
I did not.
He had the 81.5 grade running the ball. And honestly, John, I would have said it looked like that or higher. When he ran the ball, we looked like the Pittsburgh Steelers or something. We looked like a team that, no, I'm serious. It looked like we looked like a team that knew how to scheme the run game. It made the coaches look good. He averaged 4.8 yards a carry, but it was like, do you know what I mean, John? Where it's like you always think the running game is going somewhere. We don't have those ones where they're caught in the backfield, like the plays to Gio and when we had Jeremy Hill and even sometimes with Mixon, it looked like the running game was always moving forward with him. I don't know if it was the blocking. I don't know if it was the scheming. I don't know. But he looked like a serious running back and the guy that you want as a backup. And so I'm saying re-sign him. Of course, that is supposing that they let Gio go because they're not going to pay 3 running backs. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the entire point. If Gio's not going anywhere, I don't know how it financially makes sense to bring back Samaje Perine. And also, like, Perine got onto this team in 2019. He stuck around through 2020, but now there's a new running backs coach, there's a new offensive line coach, and the new offensive line coach is the new run game coordinator. There's just a different coaching staff that's overviewing who Perine is. The fact that they already have a ton of money invested in Mixon and also Bernard for another year. Like it makes sense why they would look for a cheaper replacement or just go with what they have. Like, and you're completely right. Like at times, Perine look like the best Bengals running back, but that's the nature of the position. Like you can find a Samaje Perine on the market, and he can make your running game look good. Like you don't need to invest a lot of money in these guys.
I'm saying, John, this happens sometimes. My memory is failing me, but there was a number of players. There was that Ravens guy who went to the Chiefs, and then he looked like, I mean, sometimes you see these guys who bounce around, and then they find a team, and they're just stars. I don't think you can find a player. John, do you know what Samaje means? According to a quick Google, it means honey. That's one interpretation, or good person. John, this guy. I mean, he's just got it all. I mean, he's a very lovable, charismatic. I don't think you can replace honey that easily. I don't think you can just find him anywhere. I'm going to disagree with you on that one, John.
No, that's fine. Like, they can trade Joe Mixon for a draft pick and then just sign Samaje Perine. I agree. Yeah, that makes sense.
No. I don't think teams would take. I was trying to think about that actually. What teams would take Joe Mixon? I was trying to think about that, and I don't know what team it would be worth the investment. Like, it has to be a team with a ton of cap space and a great offensive line, where they're like, hey, we have a bad offense, but we have offensive line. Let's get someone to change the culture, help our young quarterback. I can't think of team. I don't know, like the Jets or the Jaguars or whatever. I don't think any of them have that kind of offensive line where Joe Mixon is going to come in and make that big of an impact. But I don't know. Yeah,
paying a lot of money.
Yeah, they have a lot of money. Yeah, maybe we can move him. Maybe look, we all love Mixon, but it's about you have to be cutthroat in business, in a lot of things. And that's just the nature of the world, John. I mean, look, it's very cold over there in Cincinnati, and if I were you now in Cincinnati, I would go somewhere else, like Florida, for a little bit. Take kind of warm yourself up. You got to look out for number one, John. You can't stick around when times get tough just because everybody else is doing it. And so the Bengals have to think like that. Okay, look, we're out of time. And I want to thank John Sheeran. I'm sorry that Hoji couldn't be here. He had a knitting competition, the Supreme Knit Masters 2021. I don't know what it is. But and that is all we have. Please leave a 5-star review and subscribe. And we will see you next time. So long, sweetie. Bye, guys.